Climbing 29,000 feet to the top of Mount Everest has serious lists of hazards that can. We're seeing more deaths on the mountain than in recent years.
Mount Everest stands as a symbol of human endurance, but beneath its beauty lies a haunting reality.
And yet it's this fantastic window into a portion of the atmosphere where, granted, not a lot of people live, but that's critically important to what goes on in the rest of the world.
The simplicity of life becomes much more forward. There were extreme high winds, there was some snowfall, poor visibility.
The reasons are complex: extreme altitude, brutal weather, high recovery costs, and cultural considerations. Stories like Green Boots highlight the risks and difficult choices faced on Everest, revealing a place where ambition meets harsh limits and, sometimes, irreversible loss. The mountain's deadly toll. Mount Everest is a place where success and tragedy often stand side by side, carved into the very ice and rock. Over 300 climbers have on this towering giant, in place and sometimes visible along popular routes. One of the most infamous is Green Boots, whose marked a chilling waypoint on the north face for nearly 20 years, a stark reminder of the mountain's unforgiving nature. Despite the schedules and preparations, many who attempt Everest's summit never return, and their final resting places become grim landmarks. The mystery isn't why so many die, but why their bodies remain on the mountain untouched for decades. Recovering a body at such extreme altitudes is an operation fraught with danger, expense, and overwhelming difficulty. The high number of fatalities on Everest is tied both to its extreme conditions and its popularity. Thousands arrive each year, hoping to conquer the highest point on Earth. Yet each death brings questions and challenges, underscoring the mountain's lethal reputation. The number of fatalities climbs with every season, and these losses stretch back to the early 20th century. The first recorded deaths were in 1921 during an initial British reconnaissance mission, where two men never reached the mountain itself. From there, casualties increased, often involving Sherpas and porters caught in avalanches or treacherous weather. By 2015, studies estimated more than 200 bodies lay scattered on Everest, many buried in snow or lodged in crevices. Though Everest has the highest absolute number of deaths among mountains, it does not have the deadliest fatality rate. Other peaks like Annapurna and K2 claim higher percentages of lost climbers. Still, dangers here are very real. Avalanches rank as the leading cause, followed by fatal falls and altitude sickness. These hazards reflect the mountain's brutal environment, a place that requires the human body to function in conditions it was never designed to endure. Altitude sickness, especially, plays a sinister role. Above 26,000 feet, lies the death zone, where oxygen is insufficient for prolonged human survival. Lack of oxygen causes organ failure, confusion, and loss of coordination, often leaving climbers unable to make crucial decisions. Many pass out or become incapacitated during this phase, where rescue is practically impossible. This physiological challenge turns Everest into a zone where even the smallest mistake can prove fatal. While tragic stories like the blizzard of May 1996 brought global attention to Everest's deadly side, many deaths go largely unnoticed. Bodies like Green Boots became part of the landscape, unavoidable to those who dared climb past them. The emotional weight of passing such reminders weighs on climbers, creating chilling mental hurdles apart from physical ones. Despite the risks, the mountain draws people in ever-growing numbers. The lure of Everest represents the ultimate test, but it comes with very real costs. The mountain exacts a toll that's as much about endurance as it is about mortality. The grim reality of the dead resting in place becomes part of the Everest story no climber can ignore. Yet beneath these isolated deaths lies a deeper reality about the mountain's imposing power over life and death, one that foreshadows the complexities of recovery and respect. The bodies left behind will become central to understanding why Everest is seen both as a conquest and a graveyard. While the toll is undeniable, the mountain's highest climbs push human limits in ways few other places can. Understanding these deadly conditions helps explain why Everest's story is so often one of both awe and despair. Extreme altitude and the death zone. The death zone on Everest starts at approximately 26,000 feet, where the air pressure drops so low that it contains only a third of the oxygen available at sea level. Human life at this altitude is precarious. Without supplemental oxygen, body functions quickly deteriorate. Organs starve for air, leading to impaired judgment, muscle weakness, and eventual loss of consciousness. For climbers ascending or descending through this zone, even small missteps become life-threatening. The most deadly challenge on Mount Everest occurs because climbers experience hypoxia, which results from insufficient oxygen levels. Dizziness and shortness of breath at lower altitudes can be managed, but near the summit, these symptoms escalate rapidly. Climbers lose their ability to think clearly and their ability to coordinate their movements, which results in lost essential skills needed for quick decisions that could save their lives. The mountain's harsh terrain turns a small problem into a deadly crisis because people make poor decisions. The weather conditions increase all existing threats to safety. The death zone experiences wind speeds that surpass 62 miles per hour, which creates dangerous conditions as winds blow through narrow ridges and force climbers to face extreme cold and frostbite hazards. The extreme wind conditions create limited opportunities for climbers to attempt summits because these windows last only a few weeks throughout the entire year. Crews need to make missions during this time frame because they will lose access to higher camps after this period ends. The extreme physical demands of high altitudes make human bodies unable to operate normally after they remain at those heights for extended periods. High-altitude pulmonary edema and cerebral edema develop in climbers who experience lung or brain fluid accumulation, which renders them unable to breathe without emergency treatment at high altitude. Medical help has become impossible because the location exists in a remote area. Through strict medical evaluations and intensive training programs, climbers still encounter unpredictable bodily reactions because their bodies do not respond to training. Every year, climbers reach their physical and mental limits because they break down in the death zone, where rescue operations become impossible to manage. The thin air levels the playing field between the expert and the novice in a way few other mountains do. Multiple deadly incidents in this zone remain unsolved because both weather conditions and exhaustion, oxygen shortages, and physical injuries combine to create dangerous situations. The environment rapidly deteriorates a person's condition, which creates a near-impossible struggle to survive. The majority of fatalities take place within this restricted area, which extends between specific altitudes and presents lethal dangers. Hypoxia causes mental fog and hallucinations, which create an unusual risk that climbers must face. Some climbers experience distorted perceptions that make them unable to process time properly, while their memory functions become impaired, which makes their physical challenges more difficult to handle. The mountain legends become more intense through the combination of brutal actual experiences and surreal mountain encounters. Climbing beyond 26,000 feet requires both human strength and risk management skills, which no existing human systems can handle. The death zone exists as the location where people die from Everest's deadly reputation because it contains many bodies, which serve as silent witnesses to the horrifying events that took place there. Even with today's technology and supplemental oxygen, the zone demands respect and careful preparation. It is the invisible boundary between life and death on the world's highest peak. Historical accounts of Everest deaths. Everest's deadly legacy began early in its history, with the first recorded deaths tied to British expeditions in the 1920s. In 1921, 2 men died before even reaching the mountain itself. One, an unnamed porter, the other a British scientist. These early losses foreshadowed the dangers that lay ahead, as climbing the world's tallest mountain proved a deadly endeavor. By 1922, the mountain had 7 porters perished in an avalanche during one British expedition, marking the first time deaths occurred on Everest itself. Much of this early tragedy involved local Sherpas and porters who bore the brunt of the mountain's treachery. Their names often went unrecorded, reflecting the harsh realities of mountaineering history's early days. Despite repeated setbacks, expeditions continued through the decades, driven by the dream to conquer Everest. With each attempt, fatalities followed, often in avalanches, storms, or due to altitude sickness. These losses etched the mountain's deadly reputation into the minds of climbers worldwide, turning it into a symbol not just of challenge, but of mortal risk. Notable deaths became part of Everest lore, such as the German climber Hannelore Schmatz, who died in 1979 near the summit. Remained visible for decades, a haunting reminder to those passing through. Efforts to recover such bodies frequently ended in tragedy themselves. For example, experienced Nepali climbers attempting to retrieve Hannellore's remains in 1984, emphasizing the mountain's peril. The 1996 Everest disaster became one of the most famous tragedies when a sudden blizzard. It drew global attention to the risks inherent in climbing Everest and highlighted the ever-present threat of the mountain's unpredictable weather. The incident also popularized the story of Green Boots, the body of one of the victims that became a grim waypoint. The mountain has witnessed more than 200 climbers attempt to reach the summit of Everest since its first ascent. The list of names continues to grow, including climbers from around the world and local guides. Everest provides climbers with dangerous conditions that they cannot predict despite their access to modern equipment and their understanding of hazardous situations. The 2015 estimates showed that more than 200 remained on Everest because the mountain presented extreme challenges, which made recovery impossible. Now exist as a permanent fixture on the mountain, which displays its past through every climber flag. The enormous quantity of items demonstrates how humans launch ambitious goals that ultimately require them to pay the costs. Throughout 100 years of mountaineering, Everest has remained an unchanging challenge, which serves as a burial ground because it attracts climbers who die from its dangers. The history of these deaths provides context for understanding why recovery and removal are so rare, and why the mountain continues to demand a heavy price. This deep history of loss connects closely with the physical conditions and logistical obstacles that define Everest's deadly mystique, setting the stage for how recovery efforts confront overwhelming challenges. The logistics of recovering bodies. Retrieving bodies from Everest is an extraordinary challenge that few can overcome, both physically and financially. The majority of deaths occur above 25,900 feet in the infamous death zone, where the environment is relentlessly hostile and oxygen levels barely sustain life. The wind often rages at more than 60 miles per hour, making climbing and carrying heavy loads incredibly dangerous. Climbers and rescuers have just a narrow window, sometimes only 2 weeks a year, when weather conditions offer a brief chance at safe passage at these heights. Even during this window, the effort to recover a single body requires a large, skilled team. Carrying more than 55 pounds at high altitude exhausts even the strongest Sherpas, whose ability to bear weight drops to less than 1/3 of what they can manage at low elevations. In the ice can weigh up to triple their normal mass, sometimes with heavy layers of ice encasing them. Clearing the often demands hours of delicate work, with small axes or boiling water under severe conditions. Teams need to work non-stop for more than 1 day to remove a body from the site because they must use sleds to transport the remains while they traverse dangerous slopes. The team must spend over 24 hours to reach the nearest base camp before they need multiple days to move the body from the mountain to the valley or to the helicopter pickup location. Recovery teams face danger from high-altitude storms, which create mission-critical difficulties because they must stay at their current location. The financial cost adds another prohibitive barrier. Rescuers need oxygen tanks, which cost hundreds of dollars each, because these tanks enable them to survive at high altitudes, and body recovery operations need multiple tanks for different climbers. Rescue missions at these altitudes will exceed $75,000 to $80,000 in 2024 to recover each body from the site. Climbing regulation requires climbers to obtain rescue and recovery insurance, but enforcement of this rule is inconsistent, and many families cannot pay for the expensive rescue missions. Private companies avoid these dangerous recovery operations. The combination of unstable ice fields and crevasses, plus unpredictable mountain weather, makes corpse transportation too dangerous for commercial operations. Only select organizations and highly experienced teams undertake such missions, driven by respect for the deceased or contractual duty. As silent warnings, because most deaths stay undisturbed. The mountain of Everest has extremely limited options for handling deceased people due to its higher elevation than lower mountain ranges. The area lacks soil needed for burial, and cremation remains impossible because fuel and wood resources do not exist at these heights, where transporting them becomes dangerous. The frigid conditions and strong winds maintain many bodies in their original positions as they remain fully visible to climbers. Body removal efforts have started despite facing numerous difficulties that need to be resolved. The Nepalese government began cleanup operations in 2019 because it understood that Everest had transformed into a massive. The cleanup work involves recovering while removing waste materials, but it progresses at a slow pace because of its inherent dangers. The team has only managed to retrieve a few bodies from the area because the difficult terrain and the increasing number of victims have made their operations impossible. Human remains become accessible to researchers because climate change melts ice, which had preserved them throughout documented history. Glaciers retreating from their positions lead to more bodies becoming visible, which forces workers to conduct emergency attempts that risk their safety. Rescue teams face additional dangers that stem from unstable ice, together with unpredictable weather conditions. The mountains are becoming more visible than ever before, which shows the need for better, long-lasting methods to clean up the area. The logistical challenges of the situation create an unyielding truth that multiple bodies will stay on Everest for many years, preserved in their original state. The mountain's extreme height and environmental hostility transform body recovery from a simple act of respect into a monumental and costly operation, one that few can afford or endure. Economic and cultural factors. Beyond the physical barriers, economic and cultural considerations profoundly influence why so many bodies remain on Everest. The climbing industry fuels Nepal's economy, bringing in tens of millions of dollars annually. Expedition fees, permits, guide services, and equipment rentals create a lucrative market that local communities rely on heavily. The cost of climbing Everest can easily exceed $200,000 when factoring in all services, making it a major source of revenue for the region. Because of the commercial stakes, restrictions on climbing are limited. Permits are carefully regulated but costly, ranging from $1,000 to over $200,000, depending on the level of support chosen. This system encourages a steady influx of climbers, which in turn increases the number of accidents and fatalities every season. It's a delicate balance between economic survival for local people and the risks posed to human life. Cultural attitudes toward death also shape responses to the mountain's tragedies. Many Sherpas and Nepali people regard Everest as a sacred place, a realm inhabited not only by nature, but by spiritual forces. The presence of bodies can conflict with local beliefs about honoring the dead and respecting the sanctity of the mountain. However, there is also a recognition that leaving bodies indefinitely is neither respectful nor sustainable. The government has begun addressing these concerns, introducing campaigns to clean up trash and remove bodies out of respect for both living climbers and the cultural environment. But due to the sheer number of casualties and the costs involved, progress is gradual and fraught with challenges. For some locals, the risks of recovery missions can seem almost disrespectful to the spirits believed to inhabit the mountains. Insurance rules require climbers to cover rescue and recovery expenses, yet enforcing compliance is difficult given the number of permits and climbers involved. Moreover, income disparities mean many families cannot afford retrieval operations, leaving bodies on the mountain indefinitely. Private companies rarely assist because the danger and expense outweigh potential profit, further complicating matters. The commercial success of Everest expeditions has brought wealth, but also overcrowding and environmental degradation. With more climbers pressing the limits, the likelihood of accidents rises. Traffic jams in the death zone delay descents, increasing vulnerability to weather changes and exhaustion. The mountain's challenge grows not only from nature, but from human factors driven by economic incentives. Meanwhile, local guides and Sherpas face tremendous pressure and danger as they carry heavy loads and escort clients through deadly conditions. Their economic survival often depends on these perilous jobs. Attempts to curtail climbing activities risk economic harm to communities that rely on mountaineering, making any restrictions politically sensitive and complex. The debate about banning climbs on Everest is multifaceted. While safety concerns are paramount, total bans could devastate Nepal's economy and local livelihoods. The mountain's allure remains powerful despite the risks, fueled by economic opportunity, personal ambition, and cultural significance. This tension shapes why fatalities and unrecovered bodies persist as part of Everest's ongoing story. As the mountain reveals ever more bodies and faces greater environmental shifts, these economic and cultural realities deepen the complexity of managing Everest's deadly legacy. The mountain remains both a symbol of human achievement and a stark account of human vulnerability. Climate change and its impact. Mount Everest's frozen landscape is shifting more rapidly than ever before due to the effects of climate change. Rising temperatures have caused glaciers and ice fields to thin, destabilizing regions that once safely held snowpack and This thawing means that remains long concealed beneath the surface are now surfacing, exposing long-hidden victims to view and forcing urgent decisions about their fate. The mountain is revealing secrets that were once buried in ice, adding new urgency to already daunting cleanup efforts. The receding ice has revealed human remains, which create both respectful and dangerous challenges. The melting ice makes pathways less stable, which leads to higher risks of avalanches, rockfalls, and unexpected crevasse openings. The recovery teams must navigate unknown territory, which changes during every season because earlier paths have become unsafe and their work has become more dangerous. Scientists observe mountain transformation, which requires visitors to learn new skills and maintain extreme awareness of their surroundings. The exposure results in increased ethical challenges that need to be addressed. Families who previously accepted their losses begin to see their missing members reappear. For climbers and Sherpas, these remains are haunting reminders of mortality staring back from the melting slopes. Environmental and health requirements have made it impossible to keep bodies on the mountain because of the need to respect the dead. Everest's pollution problems multiply through climate change, which accelerates human waste and debris exposure. Everest's high pollution problems increase through two separate sources, which include abandoned human waste and accumulated waste materials. The mountain shows visible environmental damage, which represents the environmental impact of human activities on natural ecosystems. Weather patterns experience changes because of temperature shifts, which create unpredictable storm patterns and sometimes more severe storms. The extreme weather conditions make rescue or cleanup operations more difficult because they occur during the already short climbing seasons. Sudden blizzards create obstacles that stop debris, removal operations, while they push back expedition schedules and lead to higher death rates. Climbers must now prepare for unpredictable conditions because they know that climate change will make Everest's challenges more difficult to handle. These climatic shifts add pressure to an already overwhelmed system, where removing bodies and trash was difficult even before the ice began to retreat. Governments and local communities must grapple with how to adapt mountain management in the face of these changes. Scientific monitoring and international cooperation become key themes in preserving both human safety and the mountain's sanctity. Efforts to slow climate change globally take on added urgency when considered alongside Everest's evolving crisis. The rapid melting here is a stark indicator of broader planetary shifts, with consequences beyond the mountaintop. It reminds us that places once thought permanent and untouchable are vulnerable to human impact, demanding new respect and responsibility. The mountain, long seen as immortal and untouchable, now faces transformation through climate change. This new reality forces all stakeholders to reconsider how to honor the past, protect the present, and prepare for an uncertain future on Everest's fragile heights. Recent cleanup and rescue efforts. In response to the growing crisis of bodies and waste on Everest, recent years have seen the start of more organized cleanup campaigns. The Nepalese government initiated formal efforts in 2019, combining trash collection with attempts to recover deceased climbers removed from the mountain's popular routes. These campaigns are challenging, costly, and hazardous, but signal an increased commitment to restoring some order to the high-altitude chaos. The recovery teams are confronted with freezing temperatures, together with dangerous ice, as they try to separate frozen from the mountain, which stands as their obstacle. The process of extracting a body from ice when the body reaches up to chest height requires a complete workday. The bodies need to be unwrapped, and then they require wrapping before medical staff places them on plastic sleds for transportation to lower camps, which will be used to send them to their final destinations. The entire method requires intense physical effort, while it brings severe emotional stress to all participants. The missions face regular interruptions because of weather-related delays. A recovery team became stuck in a village for 5 days because they could not transport a body due to the poor visibility and strong winds, which prevented all flight operations. The unexpected events that follow emergency situations create dangerous conditions that make missions longer because they lead to more rescue work, which increases the pressure on emergency responders. The requirement for nighttime operations to keep climbers safe during their ascent and descent creates extra complexity for the task. The government spends money on these operations by providing millions of Nepalese rupees per body to cover expenses and ensure proper treatment of body remains. The government resources show positive progress, but they still need to be compared with the total expenses that private expeditions need to pay. The community needs more funding together with better infrastructure to achieve faster recovery operation for all victims who need assistance. Local Sherpas and climbers must work together with each other during the process. The experienced high-altitude workers execute the most difficult cleanup tasks because they must handle unsafe conditions, which could result in both injuries and fatalities. Their safety continues to be an issue, but their expertise about the area and their ability to function during extreme weather conditions make them essential. Aside from bodies, trash removal has become a major focus. Tons of rubbish, including oxygen bottles, discarded gear, and human waste, accumulate between camps. These pollutants threaten the mountain's ecosystem and the health of climbers and locals. New regulations now require climbers to carry out their waste in special bags checked on return, reflecting increased environmental awareness. Technology also plays a growing role in cleanup and rescue. Drones have been tested to deliver oxygen tanks and other essential supplies across difficult terrain, reducing the need for risky human transport. In the future, drones may assist in locating and even retrieving remains or trash from inaccessible areas, offering a safer and more efficient alternative. The mountain's changing face and the intensified cleanup efforts reveal the complicated relationship between human ambition and nature's limits. As Everest continues to draw climbers eager to challenge themselves, the question remains how to honor those who never returned while protecting the next generation of adventurers. The high price of ambition. Climbing Mount Everest today comes with a staggering cost that goes far beyond physical endurance. A typical expedition starts at around $50,000 for permits and basic support. But when oxygen, guides, transport, and specialized gear are included, the total can exceed $200,000. This reflects not only the extreme logistics of the mountain, but also a highly commercialized climbing industry. The costs of obtaining permits serve as an expensive entry barrier that climbers must pay to access the mountain. Climbers must spend between $1,000 and $200,000, depending on their selected climbing service package. The mountain generates millions of dollars in revenue for Nepal through these fees, which establish Everest as an essential economic asset. The financial reward attracts more climbers who choose to climb despite facing dangerous conditions. The increase in climbers who attempt to reach the summit has created dangerous overcrowding problems, which especially affect the death zone area. Climbers must endure extended waiting times at high altitudes because of the intense cold and hazardous weather conditions. The rising number of fatalities is linked directly to the delays, which cause climbers to exhaust their energy and lose their ability to breathe. The pressure to reach the summit often overrides caution, turning ambition into risk. Climbers who reach the elite level experience constant risk. Even Kamirita Sherpa, who has climbed more than 30 times. No level of experience removes Everest's unpredictability. The mountain continues to attract people who seek achievement and recognition, and those who want to achieve a unique goal. Financial resources play a crucial role in determining how people make their choices. Climbers who have already spent large amounts of money on their expedition will choose to continue their climb even when conditions become dangerous because they want to protect their investment. The increased risk affects both the climbers and Sherpa guides who need to rescue teams who endanger their lives. The authorities require climbers to have insurance, but rescue operations still depend on other factors. Recovering bodies from high-altitude areas costs a lot of money, yet many families lack the financial means to cover these expenses. The mountain contains bodies that remain unrecovered. Everest creates a dangerous combination of economic opportunity and human ambition, which leads to dangerous outcomes. The mountain attracts climbers because of its dangerous nature, which creates a cycle that results in fatalities, which people must pay for through their lives, not just their money. The story of Everest's dangers, its and the massive cost of climbing reveals a mountain full of complexity and contradictions. It is a place where ambition meets nature's harshest conditions, and where respect for life and acceptance of mortality stand side by side. If you found this insight into Everest compelling, please like and subscribe for more stories that uncover the truths behind human endeavor.